Hello, my name is Michael Riley. I'm from Appliance Repair Tech School. I also supply all refrigeration parts for Sub-Zero on my website, refrigeratorpartreplacements.com or restoreyoursubzero.com. I started a tech school several years ago, and I've trained tech students from all over the world so far. It's not a tech school like you're used to. You see online these academies and whatever, become certified. It's a one-on-one training. It's done the proper way. Classroom instruction just is not the way to learn appliance repair. You got 30 people in there, or 15 people. Somebody else might get what's going on, and you don't get a chance to really figure out what it is because everybody else is asking questions, and then the class is over, and it's just an imitation problems, made-up problems that just are not realistic in the real world. A lot of that going on. So when you do it one-on-one, and I actually take you out on service calls, it's basically like a co-op, like you're on-the-job training. It's almost like you're a tech, and you're riding with me on-the-job training. It's exactly what it is. It's not like it. It's exactly what it is. And I take you out, show you the ways that one of the biggest problems that techs have right off the bat, even the older ones, is that they keep changing how they're putting things together. The hide screws, and they put the end caps on like on a washer, they'll put the end caps on there so it covers up the screws. Whirlpool at one point would put the screws in from the back, and then next generation, they put end caps on, and they were in front underneath the end caps. You need to pop those end caps off, and they were really hard to get off. That kind of thing. Getting the appliance apart, especially when the customer's standing over your shoulder, can be kind of difficult because you have the pressure of them standing over your shoulder. As you become a tech longer and longer, you don't let the customer standing over your shoulder bother you. You just do your job. If something like that comes up, you just say, it's a brand new model. I haven't had it apart yet. And I figured out they can put it together. It can be taken apart. You have answers for the question for the customer, because if they start losing confidence in you, that's where things start to go south. You can't have the customer losing confidence in you when you're out there. I'm going to do several series on it here. What I do in this school as well, that I'm going to put on different videos on YouTube for different aspects of running the appliance repair business, selling the calls, the easiest way to sell the call, ways that you word things that will get the customer to do the repair, and you don't walk out with no repair done and no money. It's frustrating to every tech. I'm in sunny San Diego, California, so the training is great. You come out here, and you might be in a parka in North Dakota, and you come out here and you're in shorts. So it's kind of nice. And we're at the beach here and everything. Anyways, that's regressing. But the school, what I do is I go over everything. I mean everything, from start to finish. I've been doing this for 40 years in my own service company. My background is I worked at Whirlpool Corporation about 38 years ago. I was promoted into management after about a year and a half. I hated that, so I went back to service, started my own service company. I'm a tech, born a tech. Management wasn't for me. So if there's something that can be fixed, and even if the parts aren't available, that's what I've learned over the years, is that there's almost always a replacement part that will cross over and fit the specs of what you have. Good examples: O'Keefe and Merritt, and 50s and 60s stoves, Gaffers and Sattler. The gas stoves, the valves are no longer available, but they're BJ valves, and Robert Shaw still makes them. So even though the manufacturer, Gaffers and Sadler and O'Keefe and Merritt, there's no part number for them anymore. The manufacturer, and that's one of the things I'll train you as well, teach you as well, is that you have to understand that Gaffers and Sadler, O'Keefe and Merritt, Whirlpool, GE, Sub-Zero, they don't make their own parts. Okay? And once you understand that, you can always go back. If that part's no longer available, you can almost always, except for computer parts, but there's Core Centrics that restores those and refurbishes them. But on the other parts, you can almost always go back to the manufacturer. An example would be compressors no longer available with Sub-Zero refrigerator. Okay? Well, Sub-Zero didn't make the compressor. Embraco, other brands made it. And so when I sell those parts, I don't buy them from Sub-Zero. I go back to the manufacturer that actually made the part, the compressor or whatever. I'm also a manufacturer of several models, about 15 models of Sub-Zero evaporators. Everybody's familiar with, if you've been in the business long enough, that the evaporators tend to leak in Sub-Zeros. So what I did is I got fed up with that, and my background is electrical engineering, thermodynamics. So I actually redesigned with the proper metals, aluminum, proper aluminum, and no clads, no aluminum, copper, clad, nothing like that, because that's where your corrosion goes up higher and quicker. It starts to corrode quicker. When you have other metals in there, you have to have the proper refrigeration aluminum to resist the corrosion. And then there's a resistive coating that's sprayed on it as well, on most of them, not all of them. And I make those available. Those are on my website, refrigeratorpartreplacements.com. And I sell those worldwide, and I have been for almost 8 years. So that's a good example right there where you don't need to get the evaporator from Whirlpool, Sub-Zero. In a lot of cases, people are used to Supco, and that's all cheap, generic stuff, aftermarket. It's not the same quality. With my evaporators, they're actually a higher quality. So it's not even the same. But with the compressors, go back to that example, you can always get the compressors from the manufacturer, and it's the same compressor that the manufacturer of the compressor supplied Sub-Zero, but they finally, Sub-Zero said, look, we're not gonna source those from you anymore. That unit's so old, we want to sell a new one, which they're good at. They don't like to repair stuff if they can sell a new one for $10,000 to $18,000. And that's another thing we'll bring it up a little bit. But so instead of that compressor being put in a box that says Sub-Zero's name on it and changed to a Sub-Zero part number, I'm selling it to you directly from the manufacturer of the compressor. Okay? So when guys open up the boxes, oh, it's not the right part, it's not Sub-Zero, they don't understand how it works. And I just laugh right away. They just don't understand. That's why I'm teaching you right up front here. That's the way it works. Nobody makes their own parts. Good example also is Sears. Sears doesn't make any parts. None. The box you buy the part in says Sears, but it's made by, they're just a retailer. So they retail and sell all different manufacturers' parts and supplies and whatever. Okay? But they don't make anything. So it's the same thing with the manufacturers of the appliances. They don't make any parts. They get the parts made by a manufacturer of that part. Embraco, Robert Shaw, Easton, whatever it is. Okay? So that's a good thing to remember, because when you get into a not available part, if you do some research and get the specs on the original part, you can find a replacement almost always. Okay? One of the things also I wanted to say right up front is that if you have a Sub-Zero or any refrigerator or any appliance for that matter, I'll just say this right up front. and get it over with, is that it can be fixed. If you are having a difficult time fixing it and you don't know what's wrong, contact me. Okay, I'll walk you through the repair of diagnosing and figuring out exactly what's wrong with it, even though you're baffled and you have to keep going back, and the customer loses confidence in you. Get a hold of me. My email will be in the description portion of the video here, and I'll walk it through with you. Now, if I have another program now that I'm pushing even more. I've been doing it for a long time, doing video conferencing, even before Zoom and all these kids are now doing it with school. I've been doing it a long time. I think I was one of the, not the first, but one of the first for the video on my business website. And that was back about 20 years ago. Everybody was like, wow. And now it's just commonplace. But because of my background and degree in computer and all that, it just comes easier. But what I do is I will walk you through the repairs on Zoom. It's easier to see what you're looking at. Because I've done it so long, you can describe it to me and I'll pretty much know exactly what you're looking at just over the phone. But it's easier to look at it and say, no, it's that one over there. Okay, you're just, okay. And it's really helpful. But don't get frustrated, especially I just got an email from a guy about a sealed system. He's pretty ingenious. He's actually made his own heat exchanger. It's not hard to do, but you have to solder the capillary tube all the way up the heat exchanger because that's why it's called a heat exchanger. The suction line's cold and it's liquid. The capillary tube is hot, warm. When they're soldered together, they neutralize the temperature and it becomes neutral. So there's no liquid going back to the compressor. It's not cold and the suction line goes back to the compressor then because it absorbed the heat from the capillary. Okay, so we're getting into details here, but that's what I do is I teach you everything. I'm just kind of giving you some examples. I get into the real details of it. Asking some of the older techs, they don't always want to tell you. They're like, hey, I learned it the hard way. You can learn it the hard way. And that's, I've never thought that was really fair. I've been a trainer for over 30 years, and I like to help the techs out. Teach them the tricks, the tips and tricks of the trade that you're not going to learn on your own. And it really makes things easier, not only in diagnosis, but in repair. This refrigerator that this guy's working on, he's having a difficult time, and he's replaced several components on it, and I already know what's wrong with it just from what he's told me. And he's stumped. He's ready to give it up, and his comment was throw it in the landfill. You don't need to do that. Get a hold of me. And I guarantee you that we will solve the issue. That's a guarantee, I promise you. There's not one appliance that will get past me as far as the repair is concerned. What it takes is going back to the basics. First of all, what I teach techs when I train them, I have 2 to 3 week course, and I suggest a 3 week because another week is just really recapping everything we've been over. And I've had techs go out and start their own service companies, go and work for another company. And I give assistance after the fact, as long as you want it. But they usually dwindle off after a month or a couple months of asking me questions. But the resource of coming back and having me walk through stuff with them. That's just part of the cost of the course. I like to help techs. I like doing it myself, but I'm getting to the point where with health, I just had a heart attack and heart surgery, so I've got to back off or I'm going to end up dead in my truck or customer's house. So I got to back off and do this administrative end of it and supply the parts and the service aspect in assistance to customers and technicians. It's really hard when you go online like YouTube or something. I know everybody knows what I'm talking about. You got to go through about 20 or 30 videos because most of the guys don't know what they're talking about. I don't think they're even really real techs. or they're just trying to get views so that they can monetize, and so they just say whatever. And I mean, I've watched some really dangerous videos on there, telling people to do things that fire hazards. It's unbelievable. So I know that everybody's aware of it. It's just you type in a question on a blog, and 5 years later there's no answer. Okay, that's what I'm here for. I will respond to you and I will solve your issue. I'll spend the time with you one-on-one, whether it's on the phone, Zoom, whatever, and go through the get to the bottom line of what your question is about and how to solve it. Okay, that's a commitment to you that I guarantee you I will do. I've been doing it for 30 plus years, and I will do it with you as well. So it's nice to have a resource like myself that's available. A lot of times you call up people and, oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, you stupid. You know, I'm not going to treat you like that. Everybody's got to learn somewhere, and I'm here to help you succeed. And the bottom line for me is that the customer is going to pay the price if you don't have the proper answers. And I am really, really strong on customer being taken care of. So that's what it's all about to me, is making it easier for you and getting the customer taken care of. They're going to call you back when they learn that, even if they lose some confidence along the way and you finally solve it. And one of the things you want to do is just be honest with them. I haven't run into this situation before, but next time, I got it. You just regained their confidence, because everybody doesn't know everything, and they know that. But if you try to cover it up, oh, it's the manufacturer's problem, and they did this, that's not going to work with the customer. They're going to call somebody else next time. So just be honest with them. I haven't run into it before. I haven't worked in this model yet. They all put them together differently. So I'll figure it out and give them that confidence. They want to see your confidence and hear your confidence, okay? That's what they want. They'll leave you alone if you do that. One of the things I say for them to get me to leave me alone, I'll let you know as soon as I figure out what's up. That's a release line. That releases the customer after you've listened to what their problem is. First thing you want to do is ask them, so what's going on? Even though you already have the complaint when you go out there. Doesn't matter. Give them their 2 seconds of fame. Okay, they want time to talk to you. You want time when you talk to a service guy. So do they. Okay? They want to be able to tell you exactly what's going on, maybe some other things that are going on. And the other thing that they have in mind right off the bat is it worth it? Okay? And I mentioned earlier in the video that there'd be some things that I tell you about the right things to say to the customer. Now keep those 2 things in mind. Let the customer speak and tell you what's wrong with it. Back up, back away from the appliance. If you're standing in front of the appliance and they can't get up there, you're not giving them a chance to explain. Back away, let them go up to the refrigerator and touch the refrigerator or the washer or whatever and explain. And then when they're done, and go back and forth, ask them questions. Does it do this? Does this? They're willing at that time because they want to take that few minutes to tell you what's going on. They have other things to do. So once they do that, and you say, okay, once I figure out what's going on, I'll let you know. The release line, they're gone. They've got something else to do. They got to go back to work. They got to go to their office. They've got gardening to do, whatever. They don't want to stand there and watch you. That's what they called you for. Okay? So dealing with the customer is really the biggest factor that makes it easier for you to do the service call. If you get them out of your presence, it's actually easier to make mistakes, whatever, and fix whatever. You know, if you made a mistake, or whatever. If they're there, it's like, oh, you did this, you did that. You know, and we're all human. If we pull that cap off to get the screws and it cracks the cap, you know, that type of thing. If they're standing there, they're going to get mad because you cracked it, you broke it. But when you put it back together, the plastic, it just merges right up against each other again. And you can tell them that you can't tell or anything, but when I pull this, these are so hard to pull off that they actually crack, but you can see that the plastic just pushes back together. I apologize. I can get a new one for you. Oh, no, it looks fine. So you're just being honest with them, okay? And they weren't there to see it, so they didn't react in a negative manner. So, I mean, it's just the customer and service tech relation that really makes the job easier. But I teach you all that when you come for the training. Usually what I do is I tell you to please just listen for the first week. Don't, if you talk to the customer, talk to them only about the weather or whatever, something general. Do not answer questions about the appliance because you don't know yet. That's my job. That's what I'm training you to do. So don't answer questions because once the customer gets something in their head, it's hard to get out. Well, he said this. Well, he just told me, I know, but I'm training him. And then I got to back out of it. So that's what I do the first week is to just say, just talk about the weather and stuff with them. No technical stuff, nothing about the appliance. And that way you can listen and see how I interact with them and how I answer the questions with them. And I also said they ask about whether it's worth it. That's one of the major factors. People want to know if they're going to waste money or not. Am I just going to have another problem if I fix it this time? It's just going to keep having problems? And I almost always, because it's true, say every appliance has problems. It's just like a car, just like anything else. At about 8 to 10 to 12 years, you'll have a problem, brand new. That's getting sooner and sooner now. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 years on some appliances, washers. Samsung, LG could be 1 year. I mean, it's just garbage. But you give them that time span, and yeah, you're about what, 10 years old? Yeah, see, that's right in the time frame. So, and then the next problem is probably going to be another, who knows, 5 years, 10 years down the road. It's a reliable machine, very well made, and if it's not, then if it's a piece of garbage, you don't really want to be servicing it. Okay, not a piece of garbage because you don't know how to work on it or it's hard to work on. Don't do that to the customer. A piece of garbage is because the Samsung washer, the rear bearing on the front load washer cracks because it's Chinese bearing after a year, and it's a $600 repair, $400 and some dollars for the rear end of that with the bearing pressed in it, and you got to tear the whole machine apart. That's not one that I say that you should repair. I've done it because I didn't want to spend $1,600 for a new one because I've got a steam one and it's all these features and waste of money, all the features. But so kind of weigh that out because you're not going to make anything if you walk out of the house, but you also don't want a headache after you fix it, especially if you charge them quite a bit. They're going to be upset if they have continued problems. And Samsung and LG a lot of service companies won't work on them anymore. They just won't work on them because they have a lot of problems. They were an electronics company. They were not an appliance repair company. And they're trying to make appliances, and they're not doing a very good job of it. Okay? I'll just keep it at that. But the customers want it fixed. That's why they called you. So then what I do is I go through the diagnostic with you on the actual machine. Once the customer's taken off, they're doing whatever they're going to do. And then we have time to run it. Now, one of the most important things right up front, and this is what I usually do when we're driving, is I'll actually talk to you about every single type of appliance and how it actually works. Okay, if you don't know how an appliance works, you're not going to be able to diagnose it. You have to know how it works. Okay, so this happens at this time, this happens at this time, but if you don't know this is supposed to happen at this time, and it happens, you're like, is that right? Or if that fails happening and it's supposed to be happening, you don't know that it's failed because you didn't know it's supposed to happen after this point. Okay, it's extremely important to know how they work, all of them. And so what I do is I go over the exact procedure and how each appliance actually works. Different brands are a little bit different. This actuator sets off at this time and it's right after this. Refrigerator, this is this. Okay? That way you know how it works. Circulation of the airflow can be a damper, a motorized damper, It can be two different evaporators, dual cool, which they're starting to do now. And before, it was just one evaporator in the freezer, and the evaporator fan motor would circulate it over to the refrigerator through the damper, and then back over the thermostats. Refrigerators are one of the biggest misdiagnosed appliances out there, and they're really simple once you understand how they really work. And that's the key. So that's one of the first things that I do is go over with how they work first, and I keep reminding you every day. I'll keep reminding you. I'll keep going over it. So beating it into your head to remember how they work, okay? And then when they come out with a new one, it might work a little different, but you already have the fundamentals. And you can work from there to figure out, okay, they put this in, and it's taking the place of this, okay? Just like electronics. Okay, electronics are nothing magical, nothing mystical. All they've done is take all those knobs on the washer that were mechanical turning knobs, and they put them on a board. So the board has relays now that work all those functions of the knobs before. So instead of one switch that you could replace, now you got to replace the whole board if one of the switches was bad, okay, the relay. And it's a relay on the board now. So, and then while I'm saying that, one of the biggest problems is guys will say, well, it's not working right. It's the computer. Don't do that. Don't do that. They sell so many computers there's nothing wrong with the computer. It's not, and you find out when you go back there, and then the customer's upset because it's $400, $300 for the computer, and it's not the problem. And now what do you tell them? You installed the part. So basically, any parts house is not going to take that electrical part, the computer back. Okay, but guys are finding out tricks to that. They're going on Repair Clinic and other sites, and they can return it regardless. And then what you do is you buy off a Repair Clinic, and they send you out the bad board that the guy put in and shorted out. And now you got a bad board because they're taking back products the guys that didn't know what they were doing, put in, ruin, and then they resell it. Yeah, that's not the way it's supposed to be done. And that creates more headaches. Anyway, so what I do is keep going over the diagnostics and then hands-on. We start taking it apart, and you learn what tools you need, what tools you need to carry into the house. And I'll be honest with you, on most jobs, unless it's a parts call where I'm going back to put a part on, I've got 3 tools in my pocket. I used to carry a whole toolbox. There's no sense in that. I'd walk all around a apartment complex or duplex looking for the unit number because I think they're drunk when they number those unit numbers. Carrying that toolbox, like 50 pounds. There's no reason for it. I only carry 3 tools in the house with me. I've got a ratchetable screwdriver that has a reversible tips, and it's Phillips standard. It has 2 different size Phillips, 2 different size standard, and then the other end, when you flip it around, has all my Torx that you use. And then I also carry the individual 1/4-inch nut driver and 5/16 nut driver. So I have 3 tools. I put them in my back pocket when I come up to the house. A lot of times customers will say, "Do you need any tools?" Yeah, they're in my back pocket. It keeps it clean also, and I just have my book with me with my invoices in it. And that way when I go in, there's no, well, don't scratch my floor with your toolbox, that kind of thing. Even though my toolbox has always had rubber pegs on them, they're worried about their floor, and understandably so. If you need other tools, you can go out and grab, but typically speaking, to get into the appliances and do most of your diagnosis, that's all you need. I also carry my meter in with me, multimeter. That way, if I have electrical tests that I think I'm going to do, if I don't, then I won't bring my meter in. But keeping it light, keeping it professional looking, clean. You're not carrying all this garbage in. You're going to scratch the floor type of thing is also helpful. And one of the things that I do right away is I try to turn a situation of I don't know you, you don't know me, into almost a friendly situation. I might joke about something, but keep it light if you do. Understand that the customer they called you to do a repair. Just be friendly and very light, and I get along with them right away. A lot of times they're repeat customers for me because I've been doing service so long, and when I go in, somebody else has told them about me, and they have no questions. They pretty much sometimes don't even want to tell me what's wrong with it. I always ask, though, because I want it from the customer's mouth. They may have something else they bring up that helps you diagnose it. So listening to the customer is really critically important. Don't walk in and act like you know it all. Oh, yeah, I already know what's wrong. Don't do that. They want their time, okay, like I said earlier. So give them their time and then release them, like I said as well. Okay, when I figure out what's up, I'll let you know. Probably take just a few minutes, a little bit here. If you have something to do, if they're still standing there, feel free to do whatever you got to do, because it'll just take me a few minutes to figure out what's up. And sometimes they'll still standing there, and that's fine. Don't let that bother you. Go about what you normally would do, and just kind of almost as though they're not standing there. And just go through the procedure, test the machine, and I always start from the beginning. What I told techs when I'm training them is when a customer tells you something's wrong, try to prove them wrong. Okay? To me, that's always been the best technique of diagnosing. Try to prove the customer wrong. Not talking to them, but when you're diagnosing the appliance. And when you can't prove them wrong, you'll back it up right into that's what it is. Okay? The reason I train that way is because if you take what the customer said, sometimes they'll do more than just tell you what's wrong with it. They'll say, the dogs are bad, so they start speaking our language, and they've been on YouTube, they've been on whatever, and that's not what the problem is. So if you just take what they say and go get dogs out of your truck, that's DAWGS, not the other dogs. For people that don't know, they're little synthetic nylon gears that have ridges on them, and they go in the agitator, and they catch, and it gives a ratcheting motion of the upper portion of the agitator. So it's a 2-speed agitator. The bottom goes back and forth, and the top ratchets, and that helps to circulate the clothes from the bottom to the top. That's why they designed it. So if you didn't know why they did that, that's actually what it does. Is it circulates the clothes from the bottom to the top. And it'll be a grinding noise when they're not. It's almost and you start the machine, fill it up with water. If it's making a different noise, yeah, that's the noise, and it's not. Then try to prove them wrong. Okay, once you prove them wrong, otherwise you're going to go putting parts in you that's not the problem. It's still going to do it. Okay, don't do that. Always try to prove them wrong, and if you can't, that's what the problem is. Because customers are getting all kinds of information off the web and everything else, and that's fine. Don't put it down. All I say is that if those guys were real service techs, they'd be on the road and not sitting in their chair and making videos. And of course that goes against what I'm doing right now, but I'm not talking about all of them. There's a lot of good information on YouTube as well. But it's hard to find, like I said, 10 or 20 videos before you find some guy that really knows what he's talking about. Too many of them are out there for other reasons. Anyway, so, and then presenting the problem to the customer. Verify the problem. Make it happen. A good example is dryer coils on a gas dryer. When they go bad, sometimes they'll work for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then they'll fail because the wire's broken inside the coil. But it's touching. When it cools down, it touches because it contracts. Okay, and then when it heats up, then where it's broken, it expands and it breaks contact, and it will not heat anymore. So when you start the dryer up, it'll heat because it's cold, hasn't been running, and it's a real common one where guys will misdiagnose. Oh, the coils are fine, it's heating. No, keep it running. Let it keep running. Okay, so these are the tips and tricks that I try to teach technicians: is trust yourself. If you think what it is, in that case, you don't have to do voltage checks. Just run it, and it'll prove itself. You can check it with a meter afterwards and see if the coil's open. But if you check the coil to start with, it's going to be closed. It's going to show resistance because it's not failed. It's not heated up. Okay? I'm not sure if the new generations have heard that electronic components, when they fail, it's because they mostly fail when they get hot. And that's the same thing that you're going to find with a lot of things, electrical. When it heats up, it contracts, it expands, and that's when it'll fail. And that's the case with the wire being broken. The wire expands, it heats up, it breaks connection. Okay? Then it doesn't heat anymore. So, just one out of just tons of examples where you and trust your diagnosis. There are bad parts out there, but I heard a guy the other day he was way off base, and he says, "Yeah, I got a bad part," and I already knew that wasn't what the problem was. And I've been doing it so long, I'm pretty sure after you have so many of the same problem, you get used to what causes it. And so he's going to go return the part and then send the part back, get another one, and it's going to do the same thing again. And that's not going to be fortunate for him or the customer because they're not going to be happy about that. Now he's got to figure out the problem. And that happens to guys. Trust your diagnosis. So you could get a bad part, but also double check if that happens. You put a part in, double check yourself in the diagnosis because it very likely might be something else and you misdiagnosed it. Okay? Be honest with yourself that you're not perfect and you can misdiagnose something. That's first and foremost. If you don't believe that way, that you know everything, you're going to have a tough time in the service industry. That's the problem why so many techs over the years have had such a difficult time is because they had to learn on their own. And that's why I brought this school around. As I said in the beginning of the video, the classrooms, they just don't work. You'll get some knowledge from them, but you're not going to be able to walk out into a service center and do service. With my school, you will, because you're actually on the job. And second and third week, you're actually doing the repairs and diagnosis and dealing with the customer. It's on-the-job training, okay? There's nothing like it. It's one-on-one. I don't do multiple people at a time. It's one-on-one. It's just like you at a job with me, and yeah, I'm training you as a tech on the road. You're riding with me, okay? So that's the really nice thing about it. And the huge leap above every other school, that quote school that's out there. They talk about they can use certified. Let me just share with you right now. ASE is a automobile certification, service certification. And the guys wear the patch, car repair guys, wear the patch on their sleeve. There actually is a school for it to get certified. Okay? Appliance repair doesn't have anything like that. So if you have Joe's Appliance Repair School certification, that doesn't mean anything. That there's no national accreditation. Okay? So that doesn't mean anything. And you don't know what the knowledge of the person teaching you was. And it's classroom, so they're not going to be completely knowledgeable anyways without touching the product and finding real-life examples. A good example is we find melted wires out here all the time or loose connections and stuff. You can't simulate that in a classroom. I mean, you can take melted wires from something else, but diagnosing the machine with melted wires and finding out and backing up all the way to those melted wires in front, wow, that's why there's no voltage. There's nothing like it. 220 dryer, be a good example. There's 220 at the outlet, but it won't start. It's an electric dryer. One leg is melted because it was loose at the plug junction in the back of the dryer. Not at the outlet, but in the terminal box. They didn't tighten the connections down, and one of the wires melted. And you'll read 220 at the outlet, push it, it won't start. It's like, what's going on? There isn't voltage getting to the dryer because the wire's melted, okay, at the junction box. So there's hands-on is what it's all about. It's I think it was figured out to be like $25 an hour. My training school costs, which is unbelievably cheap, and hands-on. It's like you're on the job. So the other things that I try to train you about is really understanding refrigeration, sealed system repairs as well. I'll go over, and that's with the torch and everything. Sealed system repairs are a problem spot for most technicians. It is. Even if they're experienced, they still struggle with it. It's a forte for me because I've been doing it so long that the guy was telling me today the problem with his Sub-Zero that he's done so much work on that I mentioned earlier. I already know it's wrong, but he keeps going in a circle. He's circling the wagon, and he's not addressing the wagon, okay? And because he doesn't have the knowledge to do so and know how to do that. And that's what I'll train you on, is learning how to really properly diagnose, especially refrigeration products, so that you won't get it wrong. One of the key things I'll just bring up right now is that if a customer tells you that it's icing up in the refrigerator, the freezer, the first thing you need to ask them is, and I always say it a different way, what we run into is two different things. We run into ice, like it's clear, it's ice like an ice cube, or it's snow, like frost, like snow. So is it ice or is it snow? Explain to them first what the difference, okay? Because they're just going to call it ice. Or they might call it frost, and it's actually ice. And there's a big difference in diagnosis, whether it's frost or it's ice. Okay, ice means that you have liquid somewhere, it's freezing. It's water. Frost can be the buildup from the defrost system, and it's not defrosting itself. Big difference in diagnosis. If you have a bunch of ice back there and you put a defrost timer in, you're not solving the problem. The problem's still going to happen. Okay, it's water that's causing that ice to form into ice. Okay, where's the water coming from? That's what you have to figure it out. So that's just one of the examples of how detailed you need to be when you ask customers questions and how to ask them. Don't just say, is it frost? You don't know what their definition of frost is. Okay, tell them the definition first, and don't do it in a way that they're stupid or anything like that. Just like I did. The way we as technicians decipher the difference is ice is like, you would have an ice cube. It's clear, it's just water frozen. And then the frost is like snow. It's real soft. Which one is it? So you're telling them, you're describing it for them so that they know how to answer the question properly. And then you get the right information. Okay, so if you have thought about possibly doing repairs, you can do it. I actually walked a customer through that's never done repair before. He contacted me, insisted on doing a compressor replacement on his refrigerator, and I did it on Zoom with him. Now, it was a nightmare because he wouldn't listen. It took 11 hours. That's one of my videos there, and you'll see in a couple of them. He wouldn't listen, but he got the job done. But he had to buy all the tools. And that's another thing as I'll go over with you is the tools that you need. The rule of thumb is I always say that don't go out and buy specialty tools. Don't do it. Because if you go out and buy a specialty tool so you have everything for every possible job, you're not going to be able to afford them. Okay? What you do is you get the tools as you need them. So if you get a job that needs torches, go get the torches. for that job, okay? And you take some of the money from the job to pay for the torches. So you still make some profit, or even if you break even, now you have torches for the next job and you make all the profit, okay? That's the best way to do it. Don't try to tool yourself up with everything possible up front. It's just, there's no need for it. Like I said, most of the most common tools that you use are 1/4 inch nut driver, 5/16 nut driver, and a ratcheting screwdriver that has reversible tips on it so that you can, it torques 15, 20, and I use the Torx with the safety Torx, they're called, and they have a little hole in them. Okay, they use those on microwaves. There's a little peg in the center of the Torx, so if you use a regular Torx that doesn't have the hole in it, you can't get the screw out. But these are safety Torx, and they have a little hole in them, and you can find them. You can find them even in AutoZone. Just make sure they have the little hole in them, and all the Torx, and then there's bigger ones as well, and you can get those as you need them. But there's typically 4 different Torx that I use, smaller ones and then a little bit bigger, and that covers everything. You want to have your ratchets, your regular hand tools that you normally have if you're mechanical. So you don't need to really go out and buy any tools. All the specialty tools, buy as you need. Okay, bearing removing tools, all that kind of stuff. I don't even buy the bearing removing tool. I do it with a sledgehammer and a cylinder. I'm not going to buy that tool. It's $100 and some. I'm never going to use it hardly ever. What do I need that for? It's for the washer bearings on some of the brands. And they have different bearing removing tools and installers on different brands. They all come out the same way and go in the same way. Pound them in, pound them out. Okay? You just got to make sure it goes straight in when you're pounding it in. You don't want to do it at an angle. You don't want to get it off at an angle. You got to pound it evenly as you go in. Okay? So all those little things go over in training. You have plenty of time while we're driving, during the calls, to ask me questions. I'm constantly telling you about stuff. Just like you can see, I don't stop talking. I have a lot to share. So if you're interested in learning the trade, you can make $1,000 a day, easy. You do 5 calls a day, $200 a call, which is really nothing. $5,000 you can bring in a day. Parts come off that, and you still have tremendous money. So it's a great lucrative business to make money. Very lucrative. If you work 5-6 days a week, you could bring in a ton of money at the end of the month. So that's why a lot of guys do it. And the school is very helpful because then you don't have to go through that learning curve and mess stuff up, break stuff getting it apart, not know how to diagnose, not even know how the machine really works. It's well worth the money. Okay, so let me know if you're interested. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. If you want to fly into San Diego for 3 weeks, I've got a package on there that has a hotel also included. That works. Just be ready to do some work when you're here for 3 weeks, and we work about 10 hours or so a day. It's about 8 to 10 hours a day, and after that, do whatever you want. I've gone places with different people that wanted to do something. They didn't have a car, so they asked, and we've gone and done stuff. So I'm really easy open to making it a fun time while you're here. But we're going to work hard also while we're doing the schooling. Okay, so let me know. It's the website for it is Appliance Repair Tech TECH School.com. Appliance Repair Tech School.com. And the pricing's on there, the program's on there, everything. And as well, you can email me from the description down below this video, and we can get you on a new career. I've had people from other careers that were done it forever want to make more money, and they're switching careers, and they've never done anything like this before, and we're successful. So as long as you're ready to listen and learn and absorb it, you'll do good. It's not rocket science. It's just learning the ins and outs of appliance repair. And that's what I will share from 40 years of experience, and also share what shortcuts not to take and what shortcuts you can take, make it much easier. So, diagnosing without a meter. There's a lot of things that I'll teach you that will save you time and be more accurate. With a meter, sometimes it's like the coils. You can't test it because it's going to work until it heats up and the wire separates. So you got to run it. Okay, common sense. So learning all those little ins and outs are just invaluable. And you walk into your first dryer that doesn't heat. It's a gas dryer, and first thing you think of is what I said. You know, think about that. And then you ask the customer, what I always ask them is, does it heat at all? And they say, well, it heats up a little bit to start with, and then it's just like cold. They just described it for you. They just described it. It heats a little bit. That's why you want to ask the customer. It's so important to ask the customer because they will tell you. You weren't there when it was running before. It will shorten your time of diagnosis and where you want to look for the problem as well. If it was heating a little bit, it's not the igniter. The igniter is like a light bulb. It works or doesn't work. So don't go to the igniter right away. Okay? Turn it on, run it. And if it starts to heat, let it run for a while and see what happens. And if it stops heating and won't turn back on, I mean, you hear the click, but the igniter won't ignite the flame anymore, then it's very likely the coil, okay? The click is the solenoid energizing, but the other coil, it's a dual coil, is not energizing to let the gas out, okay? The igniter will glow red and then click, but it doesn't light. All of a sudden, doesn't light. It's the coils, okay? Not the thermostat, it's the coils. So you'll learn those things. And you don't do anything. There's no diagnosis there at all, just running it and watching it. You see what I'm saying? And listening to the customer. Okay? So it's a great school. I love teaching guys how to do stuff that they've never done before and that are excited about a new career for themselves and making a lot of money. So let me know if you're interested. Check out the website, Appliance Repair Tech School.com, and or email me from the description. I'll put the email in the description below the video. Okay? All right, take care, and I look forward to helping you with a new career if you're so looking for that type of thing. Okay? All right, take care. It's a nice place here in San Diego, so come on over. All right, take care. Bye-bye.